And Richie was there too, also. So I told him I was down here. Right, that's Jeffrey. This is probably Steve Keller, and okay. I saw Steve walking. You went to get some coffee, yeah. Okay, give everybody another minute. I didn't see also Simeon yet here. Huh?
So my youngest son and I.
Let's start it here. Okay.
For the slow drip coffee. Richie and
Oh, okay. So maybe I should
I don't know. It's slow.
It's slow drip. Okay. I want to actually just back up a little bit and look at the Aruch HaShulchan, which may be a nice thing actually while we're waiting for the slow drip coffee to finish up.
Simeon's not on?
I don't see him here. No. Yeah. If you want to give him a little reminder. But so again, this just hopefully helps us review also what we did last week. But I think the Aruch HaShulchan does a nice job of framing things as it relates to Kiddush b'makom Seuda. This concept where we have to make Kiddush in the place where the meal is taking place. So the Aruch HaShulchan, so you don't have this in front of you, but he says, the end Kiddush al b'makom Seuda, she'yikadosh b'makom she'yochal v'lo b'makom acher. You should make Kiddush in the place that. Meaning, what is Kiddush? Kiddush al b'makom Seuda means that you should make Kiddush in the place where you eat, not in any other place. He quotes the pasuk from Yeshayahu: "Dechsiv v'karasa l'Shabbos oneg v'makom shata koreh kriya l'Shabbos shata mikadsho shante oneg shal haseuda." Right, the place where you're going to call out the sanctity of Shabbos. That's where the oneg should be, which is the seuda, which is the festive meal. V'gam Kiddush hayom af she'eno mazkir shel Shabbos, even though you don't mention. The Kiddush of the day, even though you don't mention Shabbos, because it's Borei Priya Gofen, we add other psukim, but it's not really what the Kiddush is. Nevertheless, the Kavod Shabbos Ba, it's coming to honor and sanctify the Shabbos. So you say, but that's not calling Shabbos the Kiddush of the day. Don't worry, we're just doing some review. I heard about that you guys were, it was the flow drip coffee. So that's why even Kiddush Hayom, the Kiddush of the day, also requires Kiddush b'makom Seuda, which is a question that was raised last week. I know that Simeon, I think, was raising that question about the daytime Kiddush. Also requires this because the reason we make the Kiddush during the day is to honor the Shabbos. Okay. The Od Svara who Ikva Kiddush al Yayin. There's another. Hello. Oh, thank you. Welcome. Baruch haba. Thank you for all the important work you're doing. Okay, there you go. So we're just reading the Aruch HaShulchan right now, Jeffrey, just to review from last week. He says there's another reason to do this, which is to make Kiddush over those who be the ikva Kiddush al hayayin, because we make Kiddush over wine. Kiddutanya is acher al hayayin. Mistam al hayayin shebishas suda hukvach chashiv. The reason that the rabbis instituted Kiddush with a cup of wine is because it's connected to a meal. You're not just having a random cup of wine. it's to establish the meal. That's the whole purpose of it. Mamela, dehu adin l'shari mashkin. And if you use other mashkin for Shabbos day, let's say the same thing. The reason you're doing this is to establish a meal in this place. The lav deracha the adam choshev lishtos b'li achila. People don't drink without usually having some food with it. The pashu the kashesh tzarich lechol b'mokom hakiddush. Kmokeid ein lo lahamshich zman rav achar hakiddush es haseuda shlo yehefsei gadol ben time. He says very important. Don't wait after you make kiddush. You might be in the same place where you made the kiddush, or as I read to have the meal. But you shouldn't wait some, he doesn't specify a number of minutes, but he doesn't say you shouldn't wait as man rav after the kiddush to engage in the seuda, so there shouldn't be a large hefsek between. It's not connected then to the kiddush. The oneg is not, the delighting in the Shabbos meal is not connected to the kiddush. He doesn't put a time here, but one could use, judgment. He says, small time is not a big deal. You shouldn't be like, oh, make kiddush, now I'm going to walk to go to the shuk, I'll come back, I'll get something, and then do your meal. But let's say you make kiddush, and then you walk to the back here, your kids are playing in your kids, the grandkids are playing in the back, by all the toys. You come to take a look at them, then you go inside and you eat the meal. That's not a separation that we have some problem with. Now, the most important part about this introduction here, he says, "Shalosh chalukos hein b'kiddush b'makom seuda." There are three chalukos, differentiation points here. Talk about, and this helps us, I think, really frame what we learned last week. He says, number one, techeder echad mi pina lepina mikre makom seuda. That if you're one room, corner to corner, we call that makom seuda. So you make kiddush in one corner of the room and you eat in the other corner of the room. It's not a problem whatsoever at all. V'lo mibaya im kiddush b'pina zod al das lechol pina acheres ela afilu kivan b'shas hakiddush lechol b'pina shekiddush v'achar kach nisyashev lechol b'pina acheres to shapir dam. Even if you didn't have that in mind, but you go from corner to corner, not a problem. V'afilu hu tiraklin gadol leslan ba dezeb lo mikri shinui makom. Okay, that's what the Pesach of the Torah, the Shulchan Aruch, the Mordechai. Sorry, so even though the Mordechai does hold that you do need to have it, if you go from corner to corner, you do have to have in mind, he's a minority opinion, we don't pass him like him. And that's what this case also, if you go from the house to the sukkah, if there's no other room that interrupts in between, and thank you, Choshev and that's like your internal sukkah in the room we talked about last week. Whatever walls of the sukkah, it's not, they're not there. They're not real walls in the sense of like they're protecting the house, and if there's another room. It's a dira sarai. It's a temporary structure. Od shekol shiro mikomo mimakom hakiddush l'makom ha'achila. This is important because we're about to come to this today. That if you see the place where you are going to eat from the place where you're making kiddush, even if it's from room to room, afilu micheder lecheder, you can see the other spot. It could be outside, and you're looking from the inside to the outside, or outside to the inside. Not even have to see the whole place. You just see inside a little bit. Or if it's even just through the window that you see it. V'lo derech petach, and not through the door. V'have kimipina lepina, we treat it like corner to corner. V'yesh lismoch al deos elu lemase. And the Aruch HaShulchan paskins here that we can rely on this opinion, practically speaking, lemase, which again plays an important role in the as we consider play where we might make kiddush in one spot and then continue in another spot. It expands the boundaries a little bit. So now we're saying that it doesn't have to be the same room as long as you can see the other space, even through a window. Then that's fine. That does help in the case of a sukkah, by the way, where again, if the sukkah is, let's say, on the deck, and you're whatever, you start and you make kiddush, and whether inside or outside, and you didn't make it to Hamotzi before the rain starts or the rain stops. So if you can see from one space to the other, even just the opening of the sukkah, then that's considered mipina lepina, and we wouldn't have a problem here in terms of moving. He says here, though, and I'm sorry to elongate on this, but it's important. He says the second part here, v'chaluka hashenis bevinyan echad, is in one building, micheder lecheder, ve'ein roen mizeh lazeh, like what we do for kiddush here, by the way. We're in one room. You can't see the social hall from the main shul. Mi bayis la'aliyah, or mi aliyah labayis, from again, they used to have basically the attic and then the house, or vice versa. That was the case of Shmuel, Rav Anan bar Tachlifa, reporting that he was at the house of Shmuel. They went from the Igra to the Ara. Im kivan b'shas hakiddush lechol b'hasheni mutter. He says if there's intention here he writes that you have intention at the time you make kiddush to eat in the second spot. He says mutter. He says this is fine. By the way, in the bottom of this newer edition of the Aruch HaShulchan, I don't know if anyone owns this one. You own it, so they have that at the bottom, the Piskei Mishnah Berurah. So that way you can compare the bottom line psak halacha that the Mishnah Berurah gives. If you're only learning Aruch HaShulchan, you have a point of comparison. Here he happens to note in the Be'er Halacha, he happens to note that. Right, the Shul Mishnah Berurah is not as comfortable with this, and we're going to see that today. But the Mishnah Berurah wouldn't be so comfortable with what we do. But just the reason I bring the Aruch HaShulchan is because he doesn't qualify; he just writes mutter, right? It's it. The imlo kivein aser, but he says if you have no intention, then you can't do that, right? If you have intention, fine. If you don't have intention, it's not a permissible action to move from one room to the other. If you're in one building, I'm not sure what this word is actually. Haviz, not sure. I should probably look this up. It is Pir Haviz. I'm not sure. Hey Yud Reish, and then the second word Hey Vav Yud Zayin. I forgot to look it up. I got distracted by the next part that I forgot to look it up. So maybe I'll do that in a moment here. So, anyways, but the point is here. It seems like if you're in one building and you have that, and you have the intention, it's okay to move around. The third piece here, he says, "B'shnei binyanim mibayis lebayis." What if you have two buildings and now you're going from one building to the other building? And he says, "Lo mahani afilu kivein b'shas lakiddush lechol bebayis hasheni." And even if you have intention, I'm going to go from here to that building, it doesn't work. You can't take your kiddush from here and go to another building. It has to be in the same building. If you're going to do that, and I have kiddush here and I'm going to eat in another building, in the first place where I make the kiddush, I need to make sure that I eat at least the kazayis of mizonos. That is the minimum amount to call something a mokom of a seuda. It is not, and we're going to get this in stiff hay, so you're going to have to hang tight. But the way we talk about a seuda, when we think about like Sudas Purim or whatever, or we talk how we say, I had a seuda, it sounds like a big meal. When we talk about Kiddush Bimkom Seuda, it doesn't have to be a whole lavish festival, right? It could even be like a mizonos or something like that. Rabbi Morgenstern, yes.
What's the Wi-Fi you guys are asking?
The Wi-Fi. Do you have it, or are you already connected to your Wi-Fi?
Yeah, but
they don't have Apple.
Google. Yeah,
okay.
Google.
Okay, hold on one second, everybody. Here we go. It's YSNY-Wi-Fi.
Okay, it's not the young something.
No, and then
yeah.
And then if you click on this, oops. Okay, it looks like it's one Weaver, lowercase w 3.
One Weaver 3. Okay.
Yes.
Got it. Thanks, guys.
No problem.
I mean, it's anti-room.
Oh, that's what it means? Okay. Pir Haviz, the anti-room. Okay. Meaning because an anti-room is another room. It's a connected. Okay, that makes sense. Simeon, go ahead. I see your hand up.
Yes.
Raise your hand. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, Rav, I'm not really understanding it. The Rav Epstein is telling us that even if you're not in the same room, if you're within a sight line, a line sight,
Yeah.
you're good to go.
Yes.
He's telling you if you even don't have a sight, the line sight, you're still good to go if you're in the same house. So, or the same building. So
If you have
what
in mind, that you're gonna make kiddush and want to eat together, right?
Right. So what do we do on a Friday night when part of the tefillah is in fact a kiddush, and we're in a totally different building? We have to go home. We have said kiddush already. How does that work?
By the way, that is the question that appears in the Gemara in our Psachim. They say they talk about this this minhag to make kiddush and shul, which was for the guests. And the Gemara says, the Gemara had asked, like, why are you doing this? Because it shouldn't count because you're going to go home and eat. And so the Gemara answers, well, there were guests who stayed in the shul, and therefore that's who the kiddush really was for. It doesn't help you who are going to have to go home and eat somewhere else. Then you have to make kiddush in your makom seuda. So.
But in those days, the kiddush was like the shul was like a motel or something to accommodate these people. And of course, we don't do that today anymore.
Yeah.
So I still think we're out in the cold on this one.
I'm with you on this. I think it's a minhag that this question already existed some many years ago at this point already. But we keep the minhag. The reason we keep the minhag is stands on shaky grounds. We had actually, when we did that siman about kiddush in the shul, we talked about this, where it's wishy-washy. The tour, or the Beis Yosef said, I don't know why we still do this. It doesn't make sense, but we do it. And this is why we dafka give the grape juice, the wine, to children, because at least I'm not partaking in this. The Bor Peragafen, it's still a problem, but I'm not going to start engaging in tasting something. And then I tasted something, but it wasn't the Mokom Suda. But what happens if there's no children? Actually, what you're supposed to do is drink enough that you drink a revius. Because that might be, we're going to see in a moment, according to some opinions, if you drink a revius of wine, that may be, according to some, considered mokom seuda. Not everyone agrees to that, but at least you have grounds to stand upon, and therefore you had kiddush bimkom seuda, according to some. But it's a very shaky minhag. Simeon, I think the word says, it was either the tour of the Beis Yosef says that if I had the power, I would be mavatel the minhag. But Bnei Yisrael have spoken up, and for some reason we continue the minhag. There's a thesis to it about being welcoming, but halachically it's very challenging. Yes, go ahead.
If Rav Epstein was here, I would ask him why he doesn't take a position that when the man comes home from shul, the woman should make the kiddush because she has a stronger chizuk to say that kiddush than the man does. The man is doing a runaround on the whole thing.
So, by the way, we cover that. She has an equal chiyuv of kiddush, 100%. But it's the reality is so that yes, they are. Sorry, can you repeat the point again? Sorry, I got the sidetrack. Let me put on my screen. Sorry, Simeon, what was that?
My question was, it would seem to me,
right. So the man does have it. So the man can still help. Mitam arvus, he can still help, and do the kiddush. It doesn't have to be. I want to be realistic here, just historically for a moment, though, that if there was someone who had they had invested more in terms of their reading abilities. I'm just being real. Like who got to go to cheder? Did the young women go back in the days? Who if they spent money, for someone to learn in a cheder, it was the boys. And who was more familiar with until Schneer until they had the Beis Yaakov, yeah. So I don't know, but halachically speaking, it's not an issue. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Anyways, okay,
So going back to the fact that you have to eat a kazayit.
yeah,
So where do you say Birkat Hamazon? That's your Suda. Is
yeah. So
there.
then you would have to say
Go back there.
you would actually probably need to make kiddush, eat the kazayas, make a bracha achrona, and then you have to go somewhere else. 100%.
Make another kid.
No, if you had Malcolm Suda there, then it's okay. Like imagine like here, if you have kiddush, but let's say you hear the kiddush, you have cholent and crackers and cookies and cakes and whatever. You make a bracha. You're not saying Birkat Hamazon. You're saying Al Hamichya. If you happen to have also consumed the grape juice, you would add to that Al Gefen, Bial Pri Gefen. And then when you go home, assuming everybody in your family, everyone who's there, heard kiddush and had and ate mizonos in that kiddush, you don't need to make kiddush again. When you go home, you have to do shlechem mishnah for sure. But you had kiddush, you checked the box on kiddush because you had kiddush from Malcolm Suda. You could actually go ahead and just start with washing and hamotzi at that point.
Yeah, so Kiddush Rava
In
probably several times.
Sure, because it's just a very gafen. Anytime you drink grape juice or wine, you make very gafen. Yeah.
You can make other
You can, for sure. You absolutely can. It's not that, you're right. It's absolutely not a problem. You're right. The Friday night kiddush, you can only do that one time in the Malcolm Suda. You're right. Unless there's other people who didn't hear it subsequently. Someone actually asked, it was Howie Bricks was sitting with us, and he talked about how his son, who does a lot of kiruv work, often has people for lunch on Shabbos who didn't at all hear kiddush the night before. And so he actually makes the Friday night kiddush at Shabbos lunch because the people there had never heard kiddush the night before, and we talked about that. If you don't make kiddush the night before, you have an obligation throughout the whole Shabbos. And so he actually was telling us that his son makes the kiddush at lunch when he invites people who are whatever they didn't observe Friday night.
You have to sit at the table.
When you make the kiddush,
I mean, you make kiddush.
yeah.
And you're standing around. You have your herring, or you have
Right. Whatever you have.
So you're having a Suda b'makom like kiddush. Do you have to sit? I mean, you can just hang out.
I would think that you. I don't know the answer offhand, other than I would say we're going to see some of these things. There is a notion of sitting as the way of being kovei or seuda, and so there are those who are makpid for that. I would say that you will be able to find. I'm going on a little bit of a limb here. I will say that if you did eat standing in the place where you had kiddush, and you had in mind that I'm eating this, and I was connected to the kiddush, I think you're yotze. Meaning, I think you're yotze the idea of kiddush b'mkom seuda. It's just that there is something to be said for being kovei seuda, that you should sit, and there are probably those who are makpid for this. I just think that there probably is still grounds to say that does work. Yeah. Yes. It was like we had that machlokas about can you make kiddush, what position you make kiddush, standing, sitting, or a combination of both. There are those who are very makpid to sit because of this idea of being koveya, the seuda, in that place. Yeah, Jeffrey.
So I circled it from last week.
Yes.
Right. In number 5, that Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach and Rav
and Rav Elyashiv, yeah.
Both say that you can 100% make kiddush in one room, meaning we do this in our house.
Right. Right.
Eat in the dining room because you do it all the time. You don't even have to sort of say, "Oh, I'm going to
right."
Do it all the time.
Because of that because you know why you've changed the stam das. You've changed what we sort of have this assumption of what were you thinking, right? And in your situation. Of course, what do you mean? I don't even think about it anymore.
Right, so
that's what. Of course, we do.
So,
right.
So I'm saying, I think at least with that, I don't think it matters so much if we would be, standing or sitting at the kitchen because we know that we're going to go into the other room.
100%. Yep. So anyway, so those are the 3 categories. Now what I want to do is go back to where we were. We had just finished the discussion about bayis l'sukkah, so now we're gonna continue further into this discussion. I want to see that Be'er Halacha. I know that we about the sukkah. Let's actually read this. Let's look at the Be'er Halacha. So it's the only one I see here, actually, right now, on this simon. First one, it says, "When we bias l'sukkah." Did everyone see that? Okay. So he says that I'm a Mishabur, which we read last week. We read about the bias l'sukkah, about if it's an internal sukkah versus the external sukkah. So he says
What's Siman, Rav?
Reish Ayin Gimel, and it's the first.
Yes.
It's the first Be'er Halacha on the in Simon Reish Ayin Gimel, and it's the bolded words are "Uibayis LaSukkah." Okay, you see that?
All right, I'll catch it.
Okay,
Go
so
ahead.
it says here, "V'da de Elia Rabba v'Hagra Uma Amar Mordechai Hisigu al Harama Hamekel Uibayis LaSukkah." These three great rabbis disagreed with the Ramah who was makil from the bias to the sukkah case. He says not even that internal, more internal structure. He says no, the walls of a sukkah are a wall at the end of the day, and therefore we have to treat it like room to room and not within one room. Unless you had it in mind, because remember, if you have it in mind, then you go cheder lecheder, then you can get away with it. But otherwise, he says it's a problem. Okay. Umihu bal derech hachaim hatik ladina as divrei halavush. The derech hachaim quotes the words as the matter of halacha of the words of the lavush, who is even more makil than the Ramah. About this whole matter of the sukkah. And the lavush, according to the lavush, was a rishon. Afilu kishasukkah chutz lebeso. You know, the sukkah is in the yard. And shemechitzas habayis mafsekes be'em. There's a wall of the house in between. In tzarich lachzor lekadesh afilu haisa dato lazeh mitchila. It says if you're going from your house to the sukkah, and the sukkah is outside, and you didn't ever have it in mind, and let's say you made kiddush in one, and then it started to pour, and you went to go to the other one, or vice versa, and it stops pouring, and you want to go outside. You don't need to go back and make another kiddush, even if you didn't have it in mind. Because why? This goes to your point, Jeffrey, that you pointed out from Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. Because if you have in mind, of course, if the rain is going to stop, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to eat in the sukkah. That's how my mind would work. I'm a Jew who loves doing mitzvahs. So if it stops raining, that my stam das is, of course, I'm going to go outside. I wasn't thinking it, but that's how I think. And so that's how levush. Even though I didn't stipulate it, it's like I did, because of course I would want to go and eat in the sukkah if it wasn't raining. And the sukkah is, let's say, in the courtyard, right? It's like another bias. Just realize that if it's all the way in the, it's in the chutzner. It's like I can't even see it, right? So I guess if you have it like all the way down, like if some people like have a deck.
You live in an apartment building, the sukkah's on the ground floor.
Right. So you can't even see it from. Yeah. So then he says, then it sounds like you need to at least be able to see the sukkah. If you can't see it, then he's not so comfortable. Even who's the most makil, the bush is the most makil, that he's not comfortable. Therefore, and that's how the Prima Gadim brings it down. V'alkein tov lafuke nafshe midei steika v'lastos k'moshe kasatz in Mishnah Berurah. That's why he says better do like I said in the Mishnah Berurah, which was what? Drink, if you get in this position, drink a revius of the kiddush, and then at least you have kiddush k'mokom suda before you make the switch. Then at least you have something to stand on before you move to the second place. Did we get to that part of the Mishnah Berurah last time, or we ended in the middle of that Mishnah Berurah? Now that I'm
No, I don't think we got there, because it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't ring a bell.
That
We're
if
in the middle of that Mishnah Berurah. So take a look. We're in the middle of Sif Katan Hay. Fine, I gave away a spoiler alert there. Sorry for the spoiler alert, but he says, let's go to the middle of this. I'm going to tell you where we're going to start in the middle of this. But we said, everyone see where it says, okay, so it's really right in the middle of this. Okay, in the middle of Sif Katan Hay. If it's outside the house, that's like room to room. If it's like in a, he says if it's that's where if it's like in the huts there, it's like, remember they used to have houses, and then there multiple houses would then lead to a joint courtyard. It's its own space. Even halachically for like things like Eruvin and things like that, it's a different. It's not like you're not even like your own little backyard or something like that, or connected to your house. So that's, but if it's just outside, it's mecheder lecheder. She'ein dato mitchila tzarich lekadesh shenis. If you didn't have it in mind, so then you have to make kiddush in the second place if you're going to switch spots. Okay, in lo shiro es mekom harisha, unless you see that place, right? We talked about that. Zeu ber divrei harama lefi ma shebeir hamagin ram. That's how the Magen Ram explains the Rama. As we just alluded to in the Bear Halacha, there are some who are even more machmir. The Grot did not like this, even within the house. Now we read that Bear Halacha. You should remove yourself after you make kiddush. Sorry. So if you want to remove yourself from the place we make kiddush and go to the other spot, at least drink a revius of yayin, which is enough to make a bracha achrona, right? Exactly. In that first place. That's considered malkum suda, as we'll explain later in the siman. Then you don't need to make a second kiddush. And then you go to the second spot. Okay. Now, let's go back up on top. Let's see some other opinions here.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Just so what we should do, if I was at, meaning me personally, if I was at Kiddush, I made Kiddush, some people ate Kiddush, we're having a lot of people over for lunch.
Yeah.
We should ask probably in the beginning, did everyone make Kiddush? And if not everyone made Kiddush,
Here at Shul, you mean?
everyone was there, then we should probably make it again, right?
At Shul. Yeah, 100%.
But if
Yes.
everyone was there, then obviously we don't have to.
If everyone's there and they ate. And they ate
Okay.
a cracker, a cookie, a mizonos, not just a piece of fruit as we're about to see.
Or do you just mean like,
This is where, who said this? It was Richie. That the good news about your situation is it never hurts to make another bar priya guffin because you've already switched places and hey, you could drink more grape juice or wine if you'd like. And then you're for sure covered everybody, with the kiddush, because not everybody always was in the room when the kiddush was made. Not everyone was always in the room when the kiddush was made and then ate mizonos. I'll always make kiddush again. If it's just our family, I even still make kiddush again because my kids want to drink more grape juice. But but yes, generally speaking, yeah, I'll make kiddush again. In the rare scenario that it was just like, which I can't remember for a long time, but back in the day when it was just me and my wife, I can't even remember that time in my life. Before we had kids, we lived in the heights, and we would both eat at the kiddush, and we were davening at Mount Sinai in the heights on Shabbos. Yeah, maybe we just came home and we did hamotzi at that point because we both know we ate, and so we just but yeah.
So I always make kiddush.
Yeah, look, it's nothing bad in doing that. Yeah,
This way people know that kiddush malkum suda. If
it's the reminder of the rule.
It's a reminder of the rule.
Good idea.
People don't see you making kiddush at the table. Don't know about the rule.
Right. No, it's at this point in my life, I make kiddush every week.
And kiddush rabbah on Shabbos is just a bar of beer cup.
Correct. But
you don't say or
Yeah, we can.
You did.
Yeah.
But you don't have to. Even for the main kiddush, you don't have to.
Sure.
Right.
That's just extra.
Correct.
But we do.
Yeah,
we do.
That's what I mean, like to add these extra lines in. Yeah.
But yeah, we do. I actually do.
Well, by the way, I think that the reason those lines were added was to add certain hashivos to that Bar Guffin. That's why this was added later on. Okay. So we're in the third line up on top at least in my edition in the Shulchan Aruch where it says V'yesh Omen, right? Because the first opinion had said Mibayis Echa Mipina Lapina Chashuv Makom Echad. We understood that, after some discussion last week, that when we talk about this opinion, room to room is not the same as corner to corner. Okay? Okay. V'yesh omrim shekol shiro mekomo afilu mibayis lechatzer. Even if you, according to this opinion, which comes from some of the Gaonim, that if you can see the place where you're going to eat, even if it's from the bias to the chotzer, which is a totally different space. Eino tarach lachtor lekadesh. This opinion is lenient to say that is fine. V'yesh omrim, another opinion, she'im kiddush b'makom echad al das lecho b'makom acher. If you make kiddush in one spot with the intention to eat in another spot, shapir dami. But caveat, right? V'hui sheyihye shnei hamakomos b'bayis echad. You want to try to pull this off, where you can make kiddush in one spot with the mindset I'm going to go somewhere else, which is what the Aruch HaShulchan, by the way, it said, right? Then you can do it, but it has to be in one house, two places in one house, one building. To go micheder lecheder, right? Correct. That's what he was describing. Go micheder lecheder, from room to room. Great, have it in mind. Oh, miigra la'ara, from the roof, from the attic, from the roof, I guess. From the attic to the ground floor, and then we have here this famous words, v'chein ikar, and this seems to be the opinion that we follow. But take a look quickly at the Be'er Halacha. We're doing a lot of Be'er Halacha today. The next Be'er Halacha, after what we did previously, this is v'chein ikar, right? Oh, this is the third approach is the approach you can follow, which is that if you have it in mind, you can go from room to room. Umikol makom. This is again the Chafetz Chaim wrote the Be'er Halacha. This is the same person who wrote the Mishnah Berurah, right? I don't like this. Lechatchila, you shouldn't do it unless there's no better way to do it. You might, by the way, say that our situation here in shul is makom dochak, because if you tried to make kiddush in the bigger room, not sure people would hear, and then you would have bigger problems, right? So. First of all, I have the Aruch HaShulchan, who has no qualifiers on this. He says, Motor. Mishnah Berurah hedges. Okay, why does he hedge? Because the Magen of Rambam is Aleph Machmir L'Chatchila Afilu Mipina Lapina. Because the Magen of Rambam didn't even like the corner to corner thing so much. If you didn't have it, he wasn't such a big fan of that. He said, yeah, by that I said don't be Machmir. Come on, you're in one room, you can ignore the Magen of Rambam on that. But he says when it comes to now you're going to go from room to room, now it feels like it's too much for me to ignore the Magen of Ram, who said even from corner to corner was no good. He says the Ran is Machmir. Now, where does the Magen of Ram get this from? The Ran was Machmir about Cheder l'Cheder, right? And the Magen of Ram was even more Machmir, but the Ran is the Rishon. And he doesn't, he didn't like the cheder to cheder move. Mihu im gamaro mikomo. He says, but if you at least you can see the place near the yesh lahakil afilu chatchila ibdato lazeh beis hakish. So I'll let you get away with it as long as you can see the space. And that's not our situation here. So I just want you to be aware, right? The Mishnah Berurah is not comfortable lechatchila with the kind of setup that we have, which is why you might see. I once saw a couple of rabbinic guests here who were machmir, well, name names because I don't want to get involved with politics here, and who I saw that they were in the shul when the kiddush was made, and then I saw them making their own kiddush over a cup of grape juice in the social hall, because if you want to be machmir for this opinion, then that setup is not one that you'll be comfortable with. Again, our Chashulchan has no qualms about it. And by the way, even the Mishnah Berurah said b'mokum dochak, you can rely on such an opinion. So just be aware. Just be aware. There's a machlokas aposkim.
I would say yesterday at the lunch, for instance.
Yeah.
That most people made kiddush.
They were yesterday with the kiddush.
Well,
at the table. Their grape juice was on the table. That's right. Yesterday.
But then they made kiddush.
By the way, it was just fascinating you bring this up. So there was a discussion yesterday between my wife and I. We got, because there were the kids who had the food in the back there yesterday, so we got our kids kind of settled and got them food, and then we looked at our watch, said, okay, the countdown timer until how much will they bother us, and we went inside, we sat down at the table, and I was in a whole whatever. I was like, okay, let's try to eat something. Like, wash whatever. And Elise like, oh, I didn't hear kiddush. Oh, okay, fine. So we made kiddush. We made kiddush there at the table. But thank God they had the grape juice. It was I didn't know if I was gonna, I was fortunate there, but yes, that like because I had heard Kiddush and I had eaten. By the way, I had actually even made, because I was davening with the teens yesterday. I had even made the Kiddush, and I had even eaten food. I had crackers, and I had cholent, and whatever. So I was good to go. But my wife hadn't heard Kiddush, yet. Even though the main Kiddush had been almost like fully over, so I was in the mindset. I was like, oh, she must have heard Kiddush, but she hadn't eaten anything. So, anyways,
So,
yes,
the Friday night Kiddush
yes,
and the daytime Kiddush.
yes.
They're really different issues. They really are. They're different issues. Because Friday night, there's a connection between the Kiddush, the Challahs, and the Neiros. There's actually a connection between them.
Yep.
I don't know if there's halachic problems if they're not all together, but there certainly are hashkafic problems. They're not all together. There is a Kabbalistic connection between the wine, the challah, and the candles.
So when we get to Sif Zion, this idea comes up. By the way, Yesh Omer She'ein Mikadshim El or Haner, Yesh Omer She'ein Kiddush Talib Baner. There is some discussion we're going to get to about Neros, right? Shahaneros Laoneg Nitztavu Velo. So, anyways, so we're gonna.
That's Friday night. So Friday night, a lot of these Mekilim would not hold Friday night.
In terms of like some of the minhagim around here.
Yeah. I mean, the idea of just having a Kiddush somewhere with a cracker or something,
Right. So again, it could probably
the whole idea of whether
it does change the Friday night experience for sure. So we'll get into that a little bit further as we get into the sin.
Do we have soldiers staying in your house?
No, unfortunately,
Oh.
no. Okay. All right. Let's now take a look. Let's see what time it is. Okay. We have a couple more minutes. Yeah.
One minor question, just because I see this all the time and I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of people where somebody will make Kiddush. Some people will not say their own bracha. Some people will. Is one thing better than the other?
Like when someone goes to ask that, do you want to make your own Kiddush?
No, I mean,
No.
Somebody makes Kiddush and then somebody takes juice and then they will say their own Bori Priya Gafen. Even on Friday night, I've seen this.
Oh, like a little shot glass.
It's like, yes, meaning when they drink.
Uh-huh.
Like people will pour.
After the Kiddush, they pour wine.
Yeah.
No.
I've seen people do that. I've seen people like on Shabbos, there will be 5 people together. One person will make Kiddush. Some people will say Bori Priya Gafen. Some people want is there any preference?
Look, there's no. If you have 5 people, they can all make their own Bori Priya Gafen if they would like. They all need to do it with the right size cup and the right size, when whatever. If you're listening to someone else make a Bori Priya Gafen and then they drink, and then you want to have your own little thing, to drink at the same time, it's fine. But if you're gonna hear Kiddush from somebody else, say amen to their bracha, they drink, and then you decide at that point to pour yourself your own. I'm not sure that the bracha rishon of Bori Priya Gafen house you were not ready, right? That you didn't. That it's almost like you decided after the bracha to be yotzei with the Bori Priya Gafen. You don't need to drink. In terms of Kiddush, you don't need to drink as the listener. You make the Kiddush, you drink, I'm yotzei. I did my mitzvah of Kiddush. But mitam the bracha rishona, if I'm going to drink grape juice, I'm going to drink wine at some point in this meal. I didn't have it at the beginning. I do need to, I need to deal with that, right? Especially if right after you make the Kiddush, I've seen that. I know what you're describing. Like you hear the Kiddush and then people start pouring themselves, and they want to drink.
The Kiddush fountain. The Kiddush fountain.
Yeah.
What's the Kiddush fountain? Oh, the ones that pour into.
Yeah.
Well, but that's different. That's being poured from the cup that way the Kiddush was made on. That's actually mitzvah min hamufchar to have some of
Right,
it.
but I've seen people there. I mean, that is a great example. I've seen some people say their own Bori Priya Gafen.
Oh no, they shouldn't do that. No, they shouldn't do that. If they were yosei with the bracha of the person who made, they shouldn't make it. They should not. It's a bracha. It's a bracha she'ein etzricha. You don't need to make that bracha. Somebody else made the bracha and you said amen. You shouldn't make it. If you're gonna make your own Kiddush, make your own Kiddush.
There's an exception. I've been to houses where the person will make Kiddush for everybody, but he's drinking schnapps. So he'll say shahakol.
and somebody else wants bori pregaf. That's fine. Oh, that's fine because you're gonna make your own bracha and drink your own drink. But if somebody already had bori pregaf on the particular cup of wine or grape juice, and they literally poured it out into a smaller cup for you, you shouldn't make another bracha. It's absolutely an unnecessary bracha. No, it's that's what you mean. Yeah, no, absolutely not. Nope, it's all yours. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at Sif Katan Vav. Oh, sorry, Simeon, you want to ask a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to make a point, and this is really a personal one, and some people run around it halakhically, but the idea that somebody doesn't accept the fulfillment of his obligation to hear Kiddush and walks into another room and makes Kiddush by himself is a déclassé, terrible thing to do. You know, Rav, on
Oh, Vicky froze.
You froze, Simeon.
You froze down in Boca Raton?
I don't know if you can hear us, but I have full internet, so
What did he say? He said if you were what?
he's
It was bad if you do.
if you were Yotze at one place and you go to make a Kiddush somewhere else.
on some level, that which was done before and probably fulfilled all of the necessary obligations for that Kiddush.
So I missed you a little bit in the middle here because you froze for one, but I think I understood your point, which was if you make Kiddush in one place, you're Yotze. If you hear or you're Yotze with whatever the Kiddush is, then you go do it again in some other place. You're wasting your breath. It's not okay. It's not. I think that's the point you were making, right, Simeon?
Yes, you said you saw some people walk out of the shul after Kiddush was made and go in a corner and make Kiddush by themselves again.
So the reason was because they wanted to be machmir for the Mishnah Berurah, right? That's why they weren't saying that they didn't hear or something, or they didn't like. They want to be Yotze lechol hadeos. That's what they're doing. Agree, disagree. I'm describing. All right. Sif Katan Vav. Shekol Roe Mekomo. This is the opinion that as long as you see the spot, the other place, even if it's from the house to the chatzer, shekeven sheyochol b'mkom asura lirosas hamakom shekidesh, so you can see the place that you're going to eat from the place where you made kiddush. I feel derech chalon, even through the window. I feel a rock miktas mekomo, even if it's just a portion of that spot where you're going to eat. So you see like a little piece of the room, not the whole room. Choshev hakol k'makom echad. Then it's like one space, and you can make that transfer. Okay, Zion afilu mibayis lechatzer, but who adim mibayis lebayis? Even if it's from house to house.
They're live
Imroa.
streaming. It's on the radio.
Vehu adin mibayis lebayis imroa mekomo ve'ein shvil hayochid hakavua b'yamos hachama b'yamos hagishon mafsik b'neihem. He says even if it's from house to house, according to this opinion, this is very lenient, that you can as long as you see it. If it's from house to house, as long as there's one caveat though. If there's no shvil hayachid, now what's a shvil hayachid? We've learned certain parts of the Gemara.
A road.
Yeah, there's it's a shvil hayachid. It's a private road. It's it's not this is not like a public thoroughfare, but even if there's like a private one where they made a pathway so that people could walk, and it's there all year long, both in the Yemos Hachama, the summertime, and the Yemos Hagisham, the wintertime. That's mafsik between the two houses. If there's like a pathway in between where even not a lot of people, but some people walk, then this is too much of a shinui makom. It's like this is you're on the other side of the track, and that's not you can't, even if you see the place from that according to this opinion that is too much. And he says as a matter of practical halacha. Do we rely on this opinion that if I see it, I can? So the Mishnah Berurah doesn't like he's nothing like some of these opinions, right? He says don't rely on this opinion. Rak diavad b'shas adchak, unless you have no choice and it's no better choice, whatever. Shelo yochol listod b'mkom hakiddush, because you're not allowed to, because you're not able to, have your meal in the place where you made kiddush. Aval balav, it's like a totally different place. Aval balav hachi yizahar meod shelo lahakel mibayis lebayis al yedei re'iyas hamakom. So unless you're not able to eat, unless you're not able to eat because of this, the food, all the food is over here, and I'm over here, and then there's no way I can get the food over here. Okay, then you rely on this opinion. But otherwise, but without that, you're not supposed to be makil from bias to bias just through seeing. Because there are those later authorities who are machmir, even at b'diavad. You can't get away with this at all. And therefore, this is not something you should be relying on, just the re'iyah piece. Okay.
So are we saying that you can't sit down, you can't wash, sit down, eat, and then change your total place, go across that private road and sit down in your neighbor's table and finish the meal? You'll have to wash a second time. You should have made a birkat mazon before you left the table the first time in
Right.
your house. Is that the case?
Yeah, I think you have to just end the meal in the first place. If you want to go eat in your friend's house, have a little something in your own place. And if you're going to go, house hopping and you're going to go to the next house to have a good time with your friends, you need to end your first meal. That's going from bias to bias is not something that we, as you see here, allow. Generally speaking, we'll allow it. B'makom hadchak, if you could see, from one to the other, but we don't like it. From house. I think I mentioned to you guys last week. My office is in the coach house in Westchester Day School. If you've ever been there, so it's a completely detached building, and I'm often eating, eating here and eating there, or wherever my day pulls me, and I have to be. This is not a kiddush question, but it's actually a question of, can I, have some food here and then take my food to go to the other place, and it's not so pashut. So I usually try not to mix and match meals, between buildings.
Right. It would be with a single bracha, which is disallowed. You're relying on the single, let's say the single motzi, and you can't do that. That seems to be.
Yeah, it's a real challenge. Yeah, halachically. Take a look at Tzidkot on Ches bebayis echad, and this is talking about that it has to, if you want to move rooms, okay, but it has to only be in the same building, two places. That's the third opinion here. Hainu tachas gag echad afal pishiro mekomo, meaning we're talking about under one roof, and even if you don't see the place, but you had in mind, I'm going to go from this room to that room. Totally fine. Totally fine. That is the opinion that we follow, that the Aruch HaShulchan is comfortable with. Again, the Be'er Halacha, not comfortable with it. Lechatchila. Okay? That is a tension point in this question about Kiddush. And, when you're dealing with bigger rooms and bigger spaces, this is a tension point. But keep in mind, as Jeffrey pointed out, in the Rav Shlomo Zalman Arbach and Rav Elyashiv, that if you generally speaking do that move, then they were even comfortable with moving from room to room if that's what you normally do, without even thinking.
It's very funny, right? That the Mishnah Berurah says it's okay, which is the Chavetz Chaim,
And they are not.
The Be'er Halacha, which is the Chavetz Chaim, says it's not great to do.
Yes, correct.
Sort of,
He gives the explanation of what is he saying, and now he's like, "Let me tell you my thoughts."
right. We use it.
Yeah.
It's just a little.
Yes. It's an interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm just gonna read Sif Beis quickly because it's very short. Im kidesh b'vayis echad al manas lechol sham v'ka'achar kach nimlach lechol b'makom acher tzarich lachzor l'kadosh b'makom sherotze lechol sham. If you make a kiddush in one house, within on condition I'm going to eat that I'm going to eat there, and then afterwards it turns out, hey, I ended up eating somewhere else. Happened to be nimlach. It happened. Whatever happened. Then I need to go back and make a kiddush, a new kiddush in the makom that I want to eat. And he says here, Sif Katan Tes, V'achar nimlach v'lo achal kan kazayis. And I didn't eat a kazayis in the first place. Right, a kazayis in the first place. I had kiddush makom suda, and the whole question is now about benching. Do I have to bench? Do I have to have bracha achron before the transfer of myself? But at least vis-a-vis the mitzvah of kiddush, I'm good to go as long as I had a kazayis. V'achal kazayis yotza. The Kavanas will see in Sif Hey. Yud the makom acher. I end up in another place. Hainu afilu b'cheder acher sheba'oso bayis. Kevin shelo hayadato lazem itchila. Right? We talk. This fits with what we said in Sif Aleph. If I didn't have in mind that I was going to move to another room in the same house, then it doesn't work. So if I had in mind when I made the kiddush, I'm going to eat dafka right here. You see the challah, it's right here. Everything is right here. Whatever happened, happened. Something happened. I end up having to go to another room. That doesn't work because I didn't have any das. I didn't have it in mind when I made the kiddush that we were going to go to another place. We'll stop here. We'll pick up with Sif Gimel next week. But if I make kiddush and I don't have a suda, what happens with regards to the kiddush? Or what happens if I don't have in mind to eat right away? So I am in the same place, but I don't eat right away. But I have it in mind, but I didn't. So we'll talk about some of these further cases of kiddush b'mkom suda that can arise, and there's definitely more details that we're going to work through. There's a lot more cases to study.
Rav,
Yes.
Rav, the idea of the concept of Gag Echad, how is that applied today in the age of multiple dwellings? If I live in a 10-story building